Hello, hello. We are live this Tuesday. This is Tuesdays with Kamyra. I am Kamyra, and our guest today is Corey Gillis, Coach Gillis. I am excited today because our guest, Coach Gillis, is my son, and he's going to talk to us today. I'm very excited that family is showing up for these discussions these days. I hope we can keep it going. Today, we're going to be talking about parenting teen athletes and partnering with coaches. The whole teen sports world is all over the place, right? Whether your child is just going for experiences and for the love of it, or if you have an elite athlete who is trying to make it into college and maybe pros in their area. And we hear a lot about the parents of teen athletes. Some of the things we hear are complimentary. Some of the things we hear are not so flattering, like the parents in the fans or the parents who are coaching from the stands or some really ugly stuff we've all heard about. The complimentary stuff is all of the time and energy and money that parents put into their children's extracurriculars, especially sports. So today's guest, Corey, is a teacher, and he has coached middle school girls and high school boys basketball teams in addition to teaching math. And he's going to help us find the sweet spot for parents of student athletes. How involved should we be? When should we step back? How do we partner with a coach? What do we do when we feel as if the coach is wrong? He's going to help us get into that. So welcome, Corey. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. So
He's laughing like he had a choice, right? Actually, he does have a choice. Otherwise, he would have been here sooner. I want to remind our guests that if you are watching us live today on Tuesday, please feel free to put comments and questions in the comment section, and Corey and I will address those live. Okay, Corey, tell everybody what I already know. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your work.
So I do want to retract a little bit because I also taught or coached middle school boys basketball as well. But I served as a head basketball coach for both boys and girls middle school. I was an assistant coach here in Atlanta for about 4 years, and then last year I just most recently served as a head basketball coach. I am a math teacher. This next upcoming year, I'll be doing something a little bit different, going into special education and getting some experience in there.
And Corey also has the student athlete perspective because you played in high school as well.
Correct. I was a high school basketball player.
Okay. So research proves that participation in sports is good for all stages of life, whether you're a student athlete or whether you're a woman of a certain age like myself, that participating in sports is good for us. It's good cognitively and physically. And that's one of the reasons that we encourage our kids to play. But another is that a lot of us played ourselves when we were in school, and we want our kids to have a similar experience if we liked it. Or maybe we want them to have a better experience if we didn't like it, and we kind of push them. Or heaven forbid, we see them throw a ball and it goes kind of far and we start having major league dreams, at night, and we push them. But how can we guarantee that our kids, we have to push them where they won't do anything except for maybe play video games? How can we guarantee that they're doing this because they want to do it and not because they're trying to make us happy or because we're pushing too hard?
Sure. So first, I think a child should develop a love of the sport based off of them. And you can do some pre-exposure things at an early age. So, for example, watching basketball or baseball or football and things of that nature. And that's typically enough if they're going to be interested in the sport to get them to say, I want to try. And then from there, it's just getting them some exposure, right? So whether they play in the park or they go to some rec league practice or something of that nature, where they're just able to experiment with the sport in some type of I guess you could say, low impact situation where there's no pressure to perform. And they ultimately have to feel like they're interested in it and they want to go further in it based off of them. It can't be pushing and prodding by an adult or anybody else for that nature to want to participate. because in most cases where you have players or students or children who are playing a sport that they never really want to, they either develop a hatred for it or they just have a general dislike or disinterest in it. So I think it has to come from them. It should be pushed by them, and then as a parent, you should be helping them to further develop on whatever level they want to go into. Um, their interest in the sport.
So here's a question. A lot of parents say, because they develop an interest, so we go ahead and we make the commitment and we commit to the season. A lot
Okay.
of parents, a lot of kids decide they don't like it, and it doesn't take them that long to figure that out. And
Mm.
parents say, I was one of them, you have to finish the season. You have a commitment to your team, you've made a commitment to something, you have to see it through, et cetera, et cetera. Is that something that coaches agree with? Is it a good idea? Or should we let them quit when they're like, it's not for me?
So I think after the first time or so, maybe the first couple of times, you should absolutely get them to finish. And I also think that's dependent on age, right? So, for example, if you have someone who's 8 years old who maybe was trying out football and they got tackled really, really hard. And then they decided, oh, this is not something I want to do. I don't think in that type of a situation, you should say, oh, no, you should stick it out and keep on trying and see if it changes for the year. Because I think you can tell pretty early on if getting hit if is something you want to tolerate. And then you have the whole, which is a different conversation dynamic with sports injuries to that nature and CTE and just general things of that nature, I think, which you have to factor from an early age. And so when it's something that, poses a risk to physical well-being, you can pull them out. More directly to your question, I think that if it's a situation where they may not be getting that much playing time or they're not liking it for a variety of reasons, we could list their name. I think they should try to stick it out for however long the season is, because typically it doesn't start from the very beginning. It's typically a situation where the players are halfway or three-quarters of the way through the season where they decide. And so I'm a big advocate from a parent perspective that absolutely push it through. But then from a coaching perspective, um, sometimes that can lead to just general issues because as a coach and a player, you can tell if somebody is interested or not, if somebody is disinterested, if somebody is trying to give their all. And that can begin to affect the other players when they see that somebody's not invested and they may be treated differently, they may be acting differently. And so it can really, really go both ways. And so it's important as a parent to have an open line of communication with the coach to sort of see how they're doing and what level of effort they're putting forth.
I like the idea of the open line of communication with the coach because that leads me into a few things. I really want to talk about partnering with the coach, but first, can you give us some parent do's and don'ts, kind of the parenting a student athlete 101?
Sure. Um,
Mhm.
I think the most important thing is to cheer in public and have conversations in private. It's easy to, after a game or after a practice, to want to go and be loud and um, borderline obnoxious in certain situations.
Mhm.
Um, to address a coach or to express displeasure, and that just never lends itself to productivity with anyone, because when you approach a coach in a certain type of way, how you do it can um, turn a coach off,
Mhm.
right? If you're loud about it, because ultimately they're people as well, and they're going through things. They have different levels of pressures that a variety of people are putting on them, whether it's a league organizer or an administrative team. Um, you have the pressures of winning and losing. You have the pressures of, for a basketball team that could be 15 players, or for a program that could be 30 or 45 players. I mean, there's just a variety of different pressures. And so, whatever protocol the coach has to communicate with them, making sure that if you have any type of grievance, or you just want to have a conversation, that you go through the protocol to have private communications, um, just to see where the coach is. Um, but with that, everything is not a parent conversation. So, like playing time, that's not a parent conversation. That is a player to coach conversation and discussion to see, okay, this is where we are. This is what you can do. And most coaches tend to be transparent. I know me as a coach, I was always transparent with players with, this is how you can earn playing time. And if you do these things, I see you doing these things in practice, then you'll get your opportunity in game. And that's not to say some coaches don't play favorites, because that is a very, very big thing in the coaching world, is favorites. But again, that's still a player coach conversation to have, and ensuring that, as you move forward, you are distinguishing, right? So anything related to player safety, anything related to the well-being of not only your child but another child, that is a direct conversation with parent and coach, and I don't think you have to follow a protocol and wait for that. Again, just making sure you're in the right sort of situation to address it, and if necessary, going above the coach's head to make sure, whether that's with the athletic director or administrator, to make sure that those concerns are immediately addressed and met.
Okay, I love what you said. Cheer in public, conversations in private.
Yeah.
Um, what exactly is the role of the coach? If we're a parent and that's not our background, I don't know. I'm a music, I was a music kid, let's say, and now I have an athlete. And I don't really know what goes on. What is the role of the coach?
So a coach's primary function is guidance. Um, Guidance and leadership. And leadership is a little tricky, because as a coach, you want to be developing player leaders. But guidance is the word that stands out the most, um, because as a coach, and it's easy, I think, depending on where you are. And I've worked in nothing but Title I schools, which are schools in low income communities. You often end up serving the role as like a parental figure. And in many instances, for me, in my case, um, I was the disciplinarian. I was the, in cases, sources of food. I was the guidance counselor. I was the tutor. I was the teacher. Um, but ultimately, you serve a function as guiding players, and student athletes and children into whatever sort of role and pathway that you hope is positive, into their future. And you effectively guide. There's just so much that goes on as a coach that is outside the sort of purview of just the initial sport that you're playing. And then I think, after you're there to help build the whole child, the coach's role is to then teach about the sport. Um, and I mean, obviously, the goal is to win, but that depends. Winning is not necessarily about wins and losses as much as it's about impact on a child's life.
Oh, I love that. Whole child first and then the sport. Um, how can parents best support coaches? What do you want from us, and how do we partner with you? I know that that can be individual based on, personalities, but in general, what do coaches really need and want from parents?
I think it's even more beyond just personality, as much as it's, in a way, access, right? Because a single mother who, or not a single mother, a married parent, or somebody who is retired, who's working from home, may be able to give you more than the single mother who is working 12-hour shifts or 14-hour shifts, who may not get the opportunity to even come to a game to see their child. So it really depends on the parent and what they're able to contribute. And again, it goes back to that open line of communication, where you're upfront and you're transparent, about just the things that you'll be able to do for the team. And it doesn't have to be money related. It could be time related, or it could just be sending positive messages in a group chat, to the players and the other family. So it really depends on, the parent. This past year, I had some parents who were able to help organize more. I know we did a very good senior night, for our graduating seniors, and that was primarily parent and player led. Um, so it really just depends on the parent. And obviously, if you're in a situation where you're able to do more, all that looks like is just talking with the coach, seeing what are areas where they have gaps, or areas where there's something that you could possibly take over from, just a organizational side, and allow the coach to really do their job, which is to coach the players to, develop film and watch and analyze film, to creating and implementing practice plans, to then implementing game plans. So whatever you can do from an organizational standpoint, just talk to the coach and see what it is. I know some coaches may say, I don't know what I can do. So you come with recommendations. Maybe you want to be the one to help organize pregame meals. You want to be the one to bring hydration, into games and before practice, or snacks before practice, or you want to run the concession stands, or there's just a variety of organizational things that can be done, that you can volunteer for, and most coaches would be more than happy to or fundraising, which is a big thing. More coaches would be more than happy to help oblige.
Okay. You talked about if we disagree with the coach, that we should go to administration. How
When it
how
comes
does
when it comes to safety concerns,
safety?
yeah,
Yeah.
when it's safety or a child is at risk of injury or things of that nature.
Okay. We've heard a lot, especially with U.S. gymnast team, about sexual predatory and sexual abuse in from coaches. We heard about it at the UPenn and with the U.S. gymnastics team. How do parents stay vigilant about things like that? Things that students aren't necessarily going to come to them about, but we want to. We're scared now. We know it's a possibility without overstepping.
Sure. So first, I think it's going to go all the way back down to childhood, where you're having open conversations with your children. Honestly, like, so I
Mhm.
think the first thing, and it's almost cliche, is how was your day? What did you do today? What did you do in school? Did you get any homework? How was practice? What did you do in practice? So having those open conversations and forcing and first asking questions that require just beyond a yes or no answer. And again, understanding child, knowing how your children are going to react to certain things, right? And so the biggest thing is body language.
Mhm.
Okay, is the child just shaking their head yes or no? Has their facial expressions changed? Are they normally very happy and jovial, but they're more reserved, or they're timid? There more hesitations in answers? Um, are facial expressions different, right? So again, knowing your child, and in a lot of cases that is tough, especially as children get older. Again, I've worked with many parents who would tell me I haven't seen my child in 3, 4, 5 days. I had situations like that earlier in the year, because they were working, and it's something that is extremely real. So just making sure that you develop some type of a system, whether that's via FaceTime, whether that's face-to-face conversations, where you're able to communicate directly with your child, so that you know um, where how your child is reacting, and then abnormalities, in how they're responding, so that while they may not be directly honest with you that something, to those extremes are happening, that you're able to sort of pick up that something might be wrong, and you want to delve a little bit further into it.
Okay. You gave me, it's 5 points I'm looking at of things that parents should do or know. I don't know if you have them in front of you, but what are the types of things that we can be doing at home to encourage our athletes or just to keep our athletes prime, be they kids who are just spending time after school or those who are elite athletes who are trying to make it to college?
So for a parent, I think those two things are really different things. And for a coach, you'll have a combination of those things. So you'll have players who are going to be able to play NAIA, JUCO, Division One, two, or three, um, for a variety of sports, and then you have players who may be playing sports as just an outlet or a way to an academic scholarship. That was me. Or you may have players who don't have plans to go collegiately and they may want to go to a trade school and to workforce or army or military and things of that nature. So you'll have a combination of different players within a various space. Um, and so I think the approaches for all of those are different. Um, that being said, from a parent's perspective, your job is to talk to the coach and figure out where do you think my child can go from here, right? And so I think that has to be an open conversation, because a coach has a general idea as to the level, and it's important to say that sometimes the coach may misread a situation, and so a child who can potentially play collegiate sports, who may want to play collegiate sports, they may get overlooked or vice versa. But having a conversation with not only that coach, hopefully there's other coaches. So whether you're playing in AAU, you're playing whatever state organized sports league here in Georgia, that's the Georgia High School Association, GHSA. Um, Athletic association. So whatever athletic association is there, you want to make sure that you have multiple coaches that are seeing your student play so that you're able to get the most accurate information sort of as possible, for those who want to go to that next level. But some of the things is letting the coach, right? So you ultimately want the coach to um, do their job as efficiently and effectively as possible. And sometimes, again, just due to either a lack of overall talent or a game plan or strategy, it doesn't necessarily result in wins. However, mentality and mindset, are the players fighting, are they trying their hardest, are they still responsive to the coach, are they responsive to each other, right? That's all coaching. And as a parent, uplifting that and telling them to stay struggle through, because sometimes you're going to struggle and struggle is a part of
Mhm.
success. Struggle through it, keep trying to persevere, keep pushing, keep fighting, and understand that it's incremental progress that helps make you successful. Some of the other things that I said on my five, go to: be empathetic and be humble. Um, because again, when you're going to go through tough stretches, and in a school, you have so many people over the course of the day who just look to strive off of somebody's struggle or failure. And as a parent, your job is to keep uplifting them and pushing them through that struggle, because it's going to be a necessary part of life, because life is hard. It's very difficult. And the older you get, the less people you have around you. So you want to make sure that you're their advocate, and you're not tearing down. You're helping to build up even when struggles approach. So that lends itself into praising little things, right? And again, so as you have conversation with how your day has went, what small thing um, can you praise, right? So let's say your child doesn't play in a game. That's a very sort of depressing and downing situation, right? But you could talk about, I saw you on the bench, and not to be funny, but you were the loudest person cheering on your team. And that's something the coach notices, right? The loudest person cheering, the biggest advocate, first one up off the bench, giving people high fives. Sometimes that may mean passing out the water bottles to people. being an extension of the coach and of the point guard for a basketball team, that is, off the bench. Again, little things that you're able to do as a player that do not go unnoticed, and in time and situation, that may ultimately allow you to get your chance. So, and as a parent, again, praising those little situations, because it's one of the easiest things to do when you're going through a tough stretch is to sit back, pout, poor body language, and just in general, sort of allow a situation to go in and be dismissive. Um, Promoting and teaching self advocacy. Sorry, it's tough to speak sometimes. But again, that comes at an early age, right? Again, you want to make sure that your child is a person who's willing to speak up for themselves. And again, this is why when it comes to conversations around like playing time, or starting or coming off the bench, um, you help build the confidence in your children to want to advocate on their behalf. Because, and I say this all the time, um, a player knows how much time they're going to play over the course of the game, and that's typically due to how they practice. And a player knows how they're practicing, and as a result, they know how the coach is going to handle a situation when it comes to the rotation. And having that conversation with them, and in situations where a player may feel like, well, I've been doing this well, I've been doing that well, um, just making sure that they then have the confidence, and maybe you sit down and you do a mock interview with them, a mock question and answer, and you pretend to be the coach so that they can help work on their ability to speak to an authority figure, just so that they develop the confidence to go and talk to the coach. But you want to help them build that sort of autonomy to do that themselves, because a parent coming to ask about playing time, that's just going to yield a generic answer and sort of have the coach just kind of put his hands up and say, I'll see what I can do, or I don't talk about playing time, or you're going to get some type of generic answer like that. So it should be something that comes from the player in a one-on-one private conversation. And then the last thing was enjoy the experience. So you get one opportunity, and whether that comes prematurely before middle school or high school ends, or they're able to go to college and it comes to an end, or they're able to go professional and it comes to an end. Ultimately, whatever sport and ball you're dribbling, bouncing, or throwing, that comes to an end. And a lot of times you can live with a lot of regret from those situations based off of things that you achieved or you didn't, goals that you set that you may or may not have reached. And so ultimately, you got to just enjoy the experience, take it minute by minute, day by day, year by year, and just invest in enjoying it, especially as a parent. Because again, you in your mind, you want your child to get to a certain place, um, and they may have the skill and talent and work ethic to get there. And sometimes, despite having a high level of effort, um, skill or work effort, they may not ever get there. They may get overlooked. Somebody else may get that opportunity. And so enjoy every experience that you get. Take pictures, cheer loud, be their advocate, and, enjoy the experience.
I love all of those. That's why I wanted to make sure that we got to them because I think that they're really helpful tips for parents. One of the things that you keep emphasizing is that this is about a lot more than being a talented athlete. There's a whole lot more. The whole self-advocacy that takes you into the workplace when you have to speak on behalf of yourself. And I want other parents out there to know that it's okay if your child is on a team and they aren't the best, and they aren't nearly the best. They are at the very on the opposite end of the spectrum. I have had that experience as a parent. If your child still wants to do that and enjoys it, that is good for them. In our case, we had a child who's an overachiever but enjoyed basketball and was no good at it, just terrible, but enjoyed being on the team, the camaraderie, showed up for every practice, never missed a game, even if he didn't play in the games. And it was good for him. It was good for him not to be the best at something. It was good for him to support other people. And it was good for the team. And the coach told us this, for those star players to see somebody who struggled with something that came natural to them and who was still dedicated to it, who showed up before they did, who never missed the chance to participate. So if your child is that child, you should still go to the games. I went, even if my kid was not playing, and the games are still fun. And you can cheer for the other players because it's a team. It's teaching them how to be part of a team in addition to all those other things that Corey told us about. Did I miss anything, Corey?
No, but to your last one, I think that makes a very big difference because just your presence and being there, whether your child plays or not, that means a lot to every player that is there. I cannot stress. This past year, I've had players who didn't get the chance to play a lot, and just the parents being there meant a lot for. And at first, it allowed you to get to know the players because you see them every day. You congratulate them or you tell them keep working harder. First, that's something that they acknowledge. But it just makes such a huge impact on their lives because a lot of those players, their parents, guardians, they don't go to the games. They can't go to the games or they choose not to go to the games. Everybody just has different circumstances. And that role of team parent just it means a whole lot to a lot of people, and those are relationships that you build over a lifetime. And so I can't downplay and stress enough the importance of just being there and being present. Because that's where your opportunity comes from.
I think you just summed up parenting right there. Just being present is half the battle. Our time has come to the end, and I am so sad about this because you are my very favorite coach. Don't steal Pat Riley. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, everybody who's spending time with us today to talk about teen student athletes and partnering with their coaches. It can be a very tricky relationship, but it also can be a very beneficial one. We'll see you next week.